Hey, what's up, Writing Workshop? Happy New Week. I hope you guys had a great Easter weekend. We actually get to close out a grading period this week. So this week might feel a little different lessons-wise as we wrap up some earlier work, trying to set us up for success in our last 2 months here of the semester. Let's pray, and then we'll talk through this course materials folder a little bit, and then we'll look through today's lesson. Dear Lord Jesus, thank you for this day, and thank you for bringing in my in-person students safely today. We thank you for this spring weather that makes it a little bit easier to attend in person. I do also want to pray for my virtual students too, that the technology will work well today, but also that they'll get a chance to get outside, enjoy the fresh air, and prioritize their mental health as well. We pray that today can be a productive day, a day for us to wrap up earlier work and move on to something new. I pray that you are revitalizing us, giving us the energy and the motivation to do our best every single day. We love you, Jesus. We pray this all in your name. Amen. So before we look at today's lesson, I do want to point out a couple of things in our course materials folder here. For one, just a reminder about essay revisions. Now I know that we're just now kind of finishing the persuasive research essay, and I'm going to need a week or so to grade those. But I do want to remind you that you may use this week to wrap up any revisions for your college application essay up to 100%. The way to do that is to look up my feedback on your initial college application essay in your Schoology gradebook. Make any changes you like in Word Online in your original document, and then submit your revised copy here to turn it in. That allows me to pull up both versions of your essay side by side, make any comparisons I notice, and then add points back onto your original in your gradebook. You can still do that up to 100% this week. For college application essays, it'll drop to 50% back from what you missed by the end of the semester, but you'll be able also to revise your persuasive research essay after I get that graded. Another thing that I want to remind you of are extra credit discussions. If I click here. Now, one thing to note, I am leaving our March extra credit discussion open for one more week as we get to think about the life of Christ a little bit more after Easter. I will include one more extra credit discussion that actually spans April and May. That would allow me to enter March as extra credit on this grade report, and then April, May on our final grades as well. Just know that these opportunities are still open. There will be one more that opens up next week that will be open for the rest of the semester. Once again, if you haven't done our March extra credit discussion yet, I am leaving it open for this week as well, so you can talk about your favorite story from Christ's life. You can also comment on a classmate's post for a couple extra credit points as well. All right, now let's take a look at today's lesson. Today is day 32 right there. And you guys should know this video is actually going to involve a lot of splicing in from videos from last semester. We're moving into our analysis essay, but I've changed nothing about the prompt for that essay, so I'll use last semester's video that gives an overview of that prompt. I also have another video in which I break down a short story as a demonstration. That story is Act of a Hero, and we'll do that in class for my in-person learners in the A group. For the rest of you, you get to read this story and kind of see a demonstration of analysis virtually. That'll be a second video also spliced in from last semester. So really our objective for this entire week is for you guys to be able to analyze creative works. You guys have been practicing literary analysis for years now, so today might feel like a review of what you've already learned, but I do want to demonstrate for you guys how to analyze a variety of creative works as we prepare for your analysis essay. Analysis essay overview is a video you're watching right now. Again, I will splice in my walkthrough of the prompt from last semester. Act of a Hero analysis is another video spliced in from last semester. I'm going to see if I can shorten it a little bit for you guys for this semester. In our next lesson, we'll do similar kinds of demonstrations just as an example for you guys on how to analyze poetry, songs, and artwork. I already have a lot of those videos made up, so you can pick and choose which ones you want to watch as you prepare for your own analysis essay, which we'll start working on next week. A couple more things I want to show off before I splice in our prompt overview from last semester. If I click Analysis Essay Prompt Overview, we can ignore this video. Once again, I'm gonna replace it here in a moment. I have attached the prompt for the creative analysis right under the video, so you can follow along by reading that as I walk through it in the video. I've also given you guys this document called Literary Devices Overview. This is a pretty big document that just contains a whole bunch of definitions of literary devices. Lots and lots and lots of them. Some of them lend themselves more to short stories. Others lend themselves more to things like poetry and songs. But this document is here for you as a reference. You can use this at any point in the writing process for your analysis essay, just to give you some ideas on what you can analyze. I'll be referring to this from time to time in our demonstration videos this week. And lastly, active a hero analysis. Just want to show this real quickly here. Once again, you'll have a spliced in video right here. I'm going to try to cut it down from that 28 minutes for your guys' sake. But I want to note that you have a link to active a hero right here. If you click on it, you'll be able to read the same story. I think you just have to skip 5 pages or so. First 5 pages, yeah. On page 7 is actually where it begins for the reading. I do read through this story inside that video and also analyze its theme and how the author Hugh Garner brings out that theme as well. One thing I forgot to mention a bit ago, no journal entries this week. One thing I encourage you to do as we wrap up this grading period is to read back through any feedback I've given you on earlier journals. You can still complete any journals labeled as missing in our Schoology gradebook, as well as any other missing work too. This week also works as a time for you to wrap up your persuasive research essay as I work on grading those too. That is one of the most major grades in the semester, so if you have not gotten yours done yet, that is your biggest priority for this week as you gear up for the analysis essay as well. Best of luck to you and have fun as you watch through today's videos. Analysis is its own special type of persuasive writing. So far this semester you've actually written persuasively in a couple of ways. College application essay is an expository essay that's supposed to show you off a little bit, so it's persuasive in the sense that you're trying to convince a college to admit you, to accept you. Persuasive research is persuasive in the sense that you're actually trying to convince your readers of an argument. Analysis is similar to persuasive research. So like persuasive research, it seeks to convince an audience not of a specific argument, but of a specific interpretation. Unlike persuasive research, analysis focuses on themes and meanings in creative works instead of in nonfiction and research, right? Persuasive research makes arguments such as assault rifles are dangerous and should be banned, and then it uses nonfiction, uses articles, uses statistics to prove that point. Literary analysis or creative analysis is more like this story. I'll use Frozen as an example for this one. Frozen is about how true love doesn't necessarily have to be romantic, as it's Elsa and Anna's sisterly love that ends up saving the day, right? Is it persuasive? Sure. I'm trying to convince my readers of a specific interpretation, right? Someone else could say that Frozen is not about love at all, that Frozen is about bravery or about independence. It is about independence, actually, focusing on Elsa's standpoint. It's about arguing interpretations and meanings in creative works. Instead of quoting and commenting from research, the writer of a literary analysis quotes from the creative work itself and explains it in his or her own words. So there's a little more room for your own voice in this essay as well, in your commentary. For a short story, poem, song, or artwork, that one's a little bit different if I have any visual artists or fine artists in our class, of your choice, analyze its theme, its meaning, in a 1.5 to 3 page essay. 1.5 to 3 pages is rather short right there, so for 1.5, I would say if you're going to go that short, it needs to be pretty darn well written and pretty darn convincing. Don't go above 3 on this one. If you choose a short story, you'll want to aim for one that's 2 full pages or longer. The term short story technically covers anything from a half a page to 50 pages in length. Don't go reading a 50-page short story for this essay. The one that we'll be looking at later on today as an example is about 5 pages long, 4 to 5 pages. If you are doing a poem or a song, be sure to analyze at least 14 lines. This can be one piece, so obviously like a sonnet, for instance, is a 14-line poem, so that counts. Most songs are going to be 14 lines anyway, but I would be careful of any songs that are really, really repetitive. So let's say you find a song that's like, let's say you do find a song that's 24 lines long, but of those 24 lines, like 16 of them is repeated choruses. That might not be the best idea. It just depends. It could also be multiples by the same artist. So let's say you find a poet that you really like who writes a lot of haikus. Haikus are 3 lines long, right? if you do want to analyze those haikus, maybe choose 5 of them by the same artist and compare between those 5. Those are all fine by me. I didn't look at artwork right there. There's not a whole lot of limitations on artwork. The one thing I would say is be really, really careful with selection right there. You want to make sure that the art piece that you're analyzing has enough going on in it to give you enough grounds for analysis. Your essay can be 3 to 5 paragraphs, just depends on how you split up the body. We'll look at the outline in a moment right here, but I'm not necessarily looking for a set number of paragraphs on this essay. If you want to write a traditional 5-paragraph essay, be my guest. You could do 2 body paragraphs, you could just do 1 big body paragraph. That's really up to you. As far as formatting goes, same thing as always. MLA heading, title, in-text citations for citing page numbers and line numbers. You don't really need in-text citations if you're analyzing artwork. 1-inch margins, 12-point Times New Roman font, double-spaced. We know that stuff. A couple of due dates that I put your way. Again, these could shift, especially if we're still virtual after Thanksgiving break. But it says by the end of the 24th, I would like for you to select the creative work that you will be analyzing. That'll be next week's journal entry, is just telling me which creative work you want to analyze. Again, a short story, a poem, a song, or a piece of art. Your outline will be due after Thanksgiving break. I will give the 30th as a full outlining day in class as well. Final draft, as for now, is due a week later on the 7th. So I'll give you a drafting week after outlines are due. Again, that may or may not shift. I mentioned thesis statements a moment ago. Just want to give you an idea on what a thesis statement might look like for an analysis essay. For each of these thesis statements, I've indicated kind of the route that I took in analyzing the poem's theme, or the text theme. I'll also indicate how I might tackle body paragraphs if I were actually writing an essay about these 4 texts here, too. Start off with a poem. In Sonnet 130, famous one by William Shakespeare uses end rhyme and a set poetic structure to explain that his wife is beautiful in her own unique way. The route that I'm taking with this particular essay thesis right here is how does poetry structure affect theme? Now, in Sonnet 130, there's a lot more that I could analyze. What I've chosen here is just to identify a couple of ways, a couple of methods, a couple of techniques William Shakespeare uses in order to develop that theme. If I wanted to make my essay longer, I could analyze more than 2 things that he uses, but for the sake of the size of this essay, I chose 2. One of them is end rhyme. I would probably choose to write one of my body paragraphs about end rhyme. I'm going to use specific lines from Sonnet 130 as my evidence. Then in my commentary, I'll explain how that end rhyme works to explain that theme. The theme of this poem is that his wife is beautiful in a unique way. My second body paragraph, I would look at poetic structure. Sonnets are 14-line poems. There's always a dramatic shift somewhere around line 8, 9, or 10. In Shakespeare's sonnets, he always ends with rhyming couplets. So I'll look at how he divides up his stanzas, especially, how he divides up the lines and the portions, the sections of his poem, in order to show that theme as well. So that would probably be a 4-paragraph essay, an introduction to set up, to give background about this poem itself, 2 body paragraphs, one on end rhyme, one on poetic structure. All of that is to prove the thesis, which is that the meaning of this poem is his wife's unique beauty. I'll use the conclusion to tie that all together, too. Let's talk about a short story, Gift of the Magi. I'm sure some of you read this in English 1, especially if you had Mrs. Schlee, because she loves this story. In Gift of the Magi, the author O. Henry frames his ironic ending positively. By creating such a mood in the end, he argues that there is no shame in learning. In this one, we're looking at how tone and mood affect theme. As I'll show you in a little bit here, there are a lot of different ways to look at literary devices for analysis. In this one, I chose tone and mood. Now, notice that I structured this thesis a bit differently. This one's 2 sentences as opposed to 1. We compare that to the first one right here. One thing that we would note here is that we have a theme, that there's no shame in learning. That I would argue that that's the theme of Gift of the Magi. But we note here that O. Henry frames his ironic ending positively. By creating such a mood in the end, he argues that there's no shame in learning. This one I might do as just one big body paragraph. I might take this chronologically through the story. So let's kind of start with a little bit of summarizing in my body paragraph. Talk especially about the ending. There's some irony at the end right there. And then I'll discuss how that creates mood in the story, this positive mood that develops that theme. I suppose I could do that as two body paragraphs. One body paragraph about how the ending is ironic, then another one about mood in general, but that's really up to me later on. Let's talk about a song, Grenade by Bruno Mars. Wonderful song, one of Pastor Dean's favorites too. The theme of Bruno Mars' Grenade is that love drives people to make great sacrifices. Notice on this one, I flipped the order. I discussed theme first and then technique later. And these ones I use technique first and then theme later. He uses diction and hyperbole to emphasize these sacrifices. In this one, it's the idea of how figurative language affects theme. As you'll see in a bit, figurative language is everything from symbolism to hyperbole to imagery to diction, similes, metaphors, personification. There's lots and lots and lots of ways to look at figurative language, and there's a lot of it in Grenade. Once again, I might do this as two body paragraphs as well. One on the diction of the song itself, so I'll look at Bruno Mars' intentional word choice. And hyperbole is another one, right? Hyperbole is epic exaggeration, right? I'd catch a grenade for you. I would die for you is hyperbole. And artwork as well. The Scream, I'll pull this one up real quick here, just so you know what we're looking at here. Here we go. The Scream by Edvard Munch. Famous painting right here. Let me go back to here. Edvard Munch heavily contrasts colors and brushstrokes in The Scream to capture the experience of an anxiety attack. So if you're analyzing an art piece, you're probably going to focus on how the artistry itself, how the artist's techniques affect that theme. In this case, I'm looking at two once again, colors and brushstrokes. If we look at The Scream once again, notice the contrast in color. You've got these very plain browns going on here, mixed in with very vibrant reds and blues on the top half of the painting. It's actually kind of split in half diagonally down the middle. So there's a contrast between plain, bland colors, earthy tones, and vibrant, bright colors. There's also a contrast in brush strokes. Notice the very linear brush strokes. Notice the lines in the second half, and notice the more wavy, loose strokes, flowy strokes on the top half right there. You also have the focal point, the figure, who kind of shows both as well. Dull colored, or bland colors, earth tones, but also those wavy brush strokes as well. It's kind of in limbo between the two. The theme is that Edvard Munch is trying to capture what an anxiety attack is like, and by contrasting colors and brush strokes, he's able to do that. I might frame this, again, as two body paragraphs. One in which we analyze the choice of colors, or contrast in colors. Another one that analyzes the contrast in brush strokes as well. Once again, the idea there, and probably if you're analyzing an art piece anyway, your focus is going to be on artistry, on artistic technique. I should note that that's also a good route to go if you're analyzing music as well. So one thing that makes music or songs different from poems, for instance, is that in songs you have things like instrumentation, you have things like vocal pitch, vocal tone, vocal clarity. You could absolutely use that as a route for analysis too. We'll actually see that in one of the songs that I'll show you an analysis for in our next lesson. Notice that none of my thesis statements lended themselves well for 3 body paragraphs. What I would say, if you wanted to do 3 smaller body paragraphs, is come up with 3 different literary devices to analyze. So let's say you're analyzing a song, and you notice the song has, I'm just going to use some examples here. Let's say the song you're looking at has diction, just like Grenade. You want to look at word choice in the song. Let's say it has symbolism. You'll choose symbolism as another body paragraph, and you still want to discuss instrumentation. You could maybe do that as 3 body paragraphs. Again, there's a spot to include your thesis right here. You won't be able to do that until you select your text. I will give you until Thanksgiving break to do a little bit of research to find what text you want to do, whether it's an art piece, whether it's a song, a poem, a short story. That's up to you. If you're not sure about what text to select, reach out to me. I might be able to give you some suggestions. The way I'm grading your full essay, this one heavily lends itself towards grammar, since I've got no new grammar to teach you, so I really want to make sure this is a nice, polished essay. I am looking for your thesis, so I want to make sure that your thesis is arguable. Does it give a valid interpretation for your text? Does it relate to meaning and theme? Length and structure requirements, that's more or less, is your essay long enough, and does it include an introduction and conclusion? The rest is really on body. So evidence from the creative source supports your thesis. Do you actually use quotes and paraphrases from your text? Or do you refer to the art piece if you're doing artwork? Commentary connects evidence to thesis. So do you do a good job of explaining how that evidence develops the theme or demonstrates the meaning of your text? And then really the rest is grammar from there. Minimal sentence structure errors. I'm looking for no
Run-on sentences, comma splices, fragments in this one. I'm grading that out of 20 instead of out of 10. Minimal spelling and usage errors, again, 20 instead of grading out of 10. So I want to make sure this is a nice polished essay. Is your essay well formatted? MLA heading? Does it have a title? Correct font and spacing? Is all of your evidence cited properly? And then lastly, does your essay follow the writing process? Does this show clear evidence of planning, of drafting, of editing, and of publishing at the end? Notice that there is space to write your full outline here as well. Again, I'll assign this probably later on. No big rush to do this now. Obviously, you can start if you like. The only strange thing about this outline right here is that for the body, I just gave you one section to include 4 pieces of evidence. You can divide up body paragraphs, again, at your choosing. Let's say I find 4 pieces of evidence, and 2 of them work really well for one of my body paragraphs, and 2 of them work well for another body paragraph. I'll split them that way. Maybe you just want 1 bigger body paragraph. Maybe you want 3 smaller body paragraphs. Either way is fine by me. Then there's space for a conclusion at the end. So once again, this week is just a time for you to start thinking about what sort of text you'd like to analyze. I will give a demonstration of at least one of each of these as well. So we'll do a short story today. Actually, several examples of poems, songs, and artwork in our next lesson.